thing to be very aware of with any rimless, braceless aquariums is the chance of them leaking is higher, particularly if you move it or buy it secondhand. So with anything rimless or braceless, it's really important that it's on a completely flat, level surface, because silicon actually has a huge amount of strength that way, but has hardly any strength that way. So if you put an aquarium into a position and it settles, and maybe it's not exactly dead flat, a brand new aquarium will have an amount of give, and it's sort of an amount it can settle, particularly due to the foam that you, or any absorptive media you might have underneath it. But where this is a problem to you is you can leave that aquarium in that position for a very, very, very long time. But the thing to be aware of is that when you're moving the aquarium, particularly as the aquarium gets older, and particularly as the silicon starts to get a little bit more brittle, what you have to be majorly concerned about or majorly aware of is that if you move that aquarium to a different position and maybe it wasn't exactly level, and then if you move it to a new position which also isn't exactly level, and if you're unlucky enough for it to be exactly not level in, for example, the opposite direction, then there's no flexibility at all. Because once an aquarium has settled in a position and it stays in that position, it's all good. But then you move it to another position, and if it isn't exactly level, the ability for silicon to withstand pressure this way, not that way, is actually very low. So anytime you're buying a rimless or braceless aquarium, basically just make sure that it's come from a flat level surface and that it goes onto a flat level surface. Then you shouldn't have this trouble, because there really isn't the same amount of support that a normal aquarium that has rims and braces and all the rest of it, because center bridges and so forth really hug the aquarium in and keep the aquarium strong. So though it's general advice for all aquariums, make sure that it's on a flat level surface. But for rimless, braceless aquariums, it is particularly important. So you said that this female big, or both pair,
yep,
and she doesn't have a tail.
Yeah.
Because you think it was eaten off by a coral beauty.
I think so. The two of them really had it out for each other. It was really strange.
So there was
just them two.
Coral beauty clownfish war.
Yeah.
And then was he only small when she lost her tail?
No, it was about that size. It was only about 2 years ago.
And she's happy enough running around without her tail?
Yeah, I thought I could see a bit of bone actually at the start, and I thought for sure it's going to die. But it didn't, and she seems pretty happy actually. It swims around, very hard to catch if I need to catch him. Just you wouldn't even think it sort of is an issue.
And have they bred?
Yeah, they breed probably once a month in there, all the time. They usually lay on the back, just underneath the rock. There was their last batch, but the anemones have been moving around a bit lately as well. But just at the back of the rock there.
Yep.
Actually, they might have eggs at the moment.
Well, there's every chance of that, isn't there?
Yeah, they're sort of both
scooting around there. Yeah, they're looking very much like they could.
Yeah.
And so in the next tank, really try and focus on getting a bit more coralline algae.
Yes.
So you've got a fair bit of green algae, which is sort of good considering the makeup of the tank.
I felt like when I was using calc, I got more coralline algae.
Okay.
And I stopped using it. I've just been using calcium, and I feel like I've lost a lot of it since then.
Yeah, well, obviously the combination of whatever you're doing, that's obviously been the case. But I mean, calc isn't the only way of doing it.
No, sure.
But if that was your experience.
That's the thing that changed, I think.
So you're dosing magnesium?
No, I haven't had to.
Oh, so you do test it?
Yes, I do. I've got a tester.
And it's not out of date?
No.
Cool.
I just use the seawater here as well. So I think that's one of the reasons I stopped using the calc as well. I just sort of didn't need it.
What calcium level are you running?
At the moment it's probably 420. I know it should be a bit higher.
It's 420 still okay.
Yeah.
And then what KH
Probably 8 to 9.
and pH?
8.
So you really want 8.4 for if you want
For
the coralline.
pH.
The pH, yeah. The coralline really wants more like 8.4.
I was sort of a bit scared pushing it up to that, but
Well, you'll find the coralline will grow better
yeah, good.
if you wanted to try that. And then what's your phosphate?
I just sort of stopped testing it honestly, but it anywhere from what does it go from 0 to 2 or 0.02?
I think you find it's much higher
Yeah, it could be.
because the coralline algae hates phosphate.
Mm-hmm.
So the two things that are
I don't
potentially...
do anything to reduce it either.
Because basically your calcium hydroxide is going to do two things. The calcium hydroxide is actually going to bond out some of the phosphate, and the calcium hydroxide is also going to raise the pH.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes absolute sense that if you stop dosing the calc,
Yeah.
that your coralline would stop growing.
Yeah, I found the KH was going up too high.
Sure.
But anyway, that's something with the new tank, more water. I can play with a bit.
Yeah, so calc is very unstable. So otherwise, your first point of call, if you wanted the coralline back, would be to get the phosphate level down. And then your second point of call would be to get the pH up. So there's various products like AF Build from Aquaforest, which is a pH raiser, not a KH raiser. So obviously, the other thing too is when you add it, because depending on how much CO2 is in the water will depend on the impact that the additive will have on like whether it raises pH, KH, or what impact it makes, the time of day it's added, and then it's whether it's dripped in slowly or whether it's put in as a dose. So all those things are variables, but if you did want the KH back, the coralline back, then checking your phosphate, lowering your phosphate, and getting your pH up is probably the solution, and that probably makes sense with what you said about stopping your...
Yeah, that was sort of that was the biggest.
Yeah,
the change.
because otherwise there is a catch-22, because you don't really want your KH going too high.
Yeah.
So obviously what you were doing did actually need changing.
Yeah, it was going too high. And nothing else seemed to. It was a bit strange.
Yeah, well, it's not that unusual. So it's just a matter of changing what you're doing. And even changing when you're doing it. So lowering your phosphate, and what's nitrate?
I didn't test. I just stopped testing it.
Okay, so
It could be anything.
Possible your nitrate's up to.
Yeah.
Because your nitrate is also something that's going to discourage your coralline algae.
I do like it simple. You can see I haven't got a skimmer or anything on there. So if it's a case of keeping it simple and not having the coralline,
well, that's a trade-off. Yeah, you can
okay.
do that. You can,
because everything else kind of looks so good. You know, if that's the trade-off, then that's what I'll take.
That's a valid trade-off because basically you've either got a river, and the river's full of algae with no coral. Then you've got like an intermediate zone, which is high in nutrient, some corals. So you'll get some anemones, you'll get some leather corals, you get maybe some zoes.
Which is pretty much it. Yep.
And that's like a higher nutrient. And then it goes out onto the reef, past your calopa beds and so forth. And then you got the low nutrient. So the low nutrient's obviously the thing that you're sort of avoiding because that takes more effort. So there's a totally good trade-off that you can make. And particularly with things like mandarins and so forth, running a super low nutrient take is sort of not ideal anyway, because they like a little bit more nutrient in there and more amphipods and copepods.
And there's plenty of pods in there.
And more stuff, and that's really a secret to keeping those sorts of things.
There he is. It's just I can see him right in the middle there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, and there's a really big bristle worm there.
Oh, yeah.
What?
So you might want to scoop him out while you can see him. You don't want to touch him, but you should use the end of a coat hanger or something. Just because they reduplicate over and over and over and over again.
There you go, right in the middle there. Can you see?
Oh my god,
Just between the
Are
the
those
weeds.
worms bad?
He's on the sand.
they're not the end of the world, but
He's been there for
where is he?
these fins flicking around. Yeah, hold it there.
Yep. Can't see him yet.
I can shine the light on him a bit.
Chuck a light on. Got it.
Oh, I can't see him yet. Oh yeah, he's sitting there. Just
Where
under
is he?
that white branch that's sticking out.
White branch sticking out.
Yeah,
There's a white
just under there.
branch.
He's just under there. Yeah.
What are you looking at?
The mandarin.
Mandarin fish.
Here,
Oh,
right
there,
You
I
see
see
him?
him.
Yeah.
Where is he?
He's coming towards the front.
But go down a bit.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? You're gonna come around this
Oh,
side.
yeah, come on. Oh, yeah, there he is.
Where
Right, right in
is
the
he?
middle.
There, he's there. That's him. That black bit. Look, that black thing.
Yeah.
Keep shining right there.
He's got his
That
fins
way, that
sticking
way.
up.
Wait, go around this way. Oh,
See him?
no, you can't see him here. Oh, he's just. Oh
Yeah,
no,
he's still
he's still
sitting
there. Wait,
You
wait.
take the camera, James.
I don't know if I'll be able to get him.
It's James and James. It's two
Yeah.
Jameses.
Where do you go? What the?
No, he's still there. It's just hard with the camera, is it? Maybe. Yeah, he's in there. He's just behind the weed.
Turned into Where's Wally?
Yeah.
Why can't I see him on the camera?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Oh, there he is.
Yeah, there he is.
Where is he?
There's a
Point to him.
fleck of orange or something in there.
Oh, there you go. Here's a from back.
With phosphate, you can get a phosphate level of 0 when you test it, but that doesn't actually mean your phosphate's 0, because there's multiple different types of phosphate, and then there's only like one phosphate, which I think from memory is inorganic phosphate, that actually shows up in your test kits. So if you're getting algae, you lower your phosphates, and that usually gets rid of the algae, particularly if it's green algae, even if your phosphate is actually 0. And the other thing you can do every now and then is send away an ICP test, because that's going to give you a better understanding of what's happening, including giving you more different phosphates that you can get hold of, that you can find out, but it still isn't going to test things like your calcium phosphate, calcium diphosphate, and stuff that actually forms in the rock itself, because you can't test for that, because phosphate will bond into your rock and then slowly release.